So this is a question from Pavana. She wants to know, or she wants to hear our thoughts on whether or not there is a difference between doing something and letting something happen. I wish she was here because I have some questions I want to ask to clarify the question.
Yeah.
Guess you can just give your first impressions of what you think about it.
Yeah.
Bro, this mosquito is still here, bro. I swear, bro.
The one from yesterday?
Yeah, bro, I swear.
First thing I thought of was, growing up, I was always taught that in cases like bullying, for example, if you see bullying happen or if you see a crime being done and you don't say something, then it's just as bad as doing it yourself.
Yeah,
or
that's like what we learn in ethics. What's that called?
So like I was saying earlier, when growing up, you're taught that if you see, like when you get on a train and you see like a bomb or like a backpack, right? If you see a backpack and no one's claiming it, and there's always like signs that say, if you see a bag that's unclaimed, then let someone know because it could be a bomb. Now, of course, if the bomb blows up and like you saw it, you might have thought of it, but you're like, you know what, like I don't feel like it. No, you're not doing it, right? You're not exploding a bomb and you're not responsible for the deaths. Alright, see that the word that I just used there, responsible, that's the piece here. Even though you didn't do it, you could have stopped it. You could be held responsible because you could have said something, right? Same thing with bullying. If you see someone getting bullied and you know you have the power to stop it, but you decided not to say anything, then it's not as bad as doing it, but you could have been doing it and you would have felt the same.
Yep.
You could have been doing it, it would have been the same outcome. So I guess what it really comes down to is what outcome are you trying to have and what outcome are you trying to avoid? Because if your outcome is, you know what, like I just don't want to be responsible for anything, I don't want trouble, I just want to mind my own business, then you're going to get that outcome. But if your outcome is, I want to see this person suffer and I'm going to laugh, but I just won't do it myself, then you might as well do it yourself. Like, especially in cases like bullying. Like, if you're okay with watching someone get, watch someone be undervalued and picked on, you enjoy it, you laugh at it, but you don't do it yourself, it's just as bad. Because basically what you're saying is, I do it, I just, either I don't feel like it or I don't have the strength, but I like it. So, to answer the question of is there a difference between doing something versus letting something happen, it really depends on the situation. But I think a rule of thumb is, yes, there's very little difference between letting something happen and doing it yourself.
Gotcha.
What do you think?
You know that show, What Would You Do?
I think it sounds familiar.
It was on like Fox or something. He had a show where he would like put these bizarre situations out in the public and see how people would react to it.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, you've seen it, right?
They do like bullying and stuff.
Yeah, it'll see how people react and they'll ask questions like, why didn't you do
anything?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And like you said, most of the times like people let things happen because they just don't want trouble. They don't want to be involved in something they don't know the full story to, or
yeah, and in cases like that,
oh, this freaking mosquito. Oh my god, I missed it. Yeah, go ahead.
Like in cases like that, like let's say you're at a restaurant and like you see a underrepresented couple walk in and they're getting treated a lot different than you. And then the question here is it bad to see the treatment happen and not do anything? Is it as bad as doing the mistreatment yourself? I think that, or what do you think about that?
Repeat it?
So you're at a restaurant eating.
So you're saying you might as well do it yourself if you're not doing anything about it?
No. Forget my opinion. I want to hear your opinion on this. So let's say you're at a Chinese restaurant, right?
Yeah.
And you're with you're with your family,
Sure.
and let's say, you know, a Hispanic couple comes in, and they don't speak Chinese, and they barely speak English.
Okay.
Let's say me and like my parents walk in or something, right? They don't barely speak English, definitely don't speak Chinese, and you see that, you know, like you understand Chinese, and you hear the other employees, they're making fun of them. They're saying like, oh, look at these like dirty Mexicans and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
They're mistreating them, and you can hear them like teasing them, and even like, by the way they communicate with them, you can see that the treatment is really poor.
Sure.
So would you say anything?
Yeah. But I would try to understand the situation before. Like, I wouldn't quickly assume. Like they would have to give me like a few, like 2 strikes, at least like 2 strikes, of me seeing them like saying something bad or doing something bad.
Why 2?
Just because like sometimes like people are just ignorant. Like once, maybe they just said it under their breath or something.
Mm-hmm.
You give them strikes, you know, like maybe they just accidentally said it, or I don't know. Like, but if they continuously do it, that's when I would step up and say something. Not if it's like one time, because one time I think like people are just ignorant. Oh shoot, I gotta get down. But I would definitely like say something if I see it continuously happening, and after once. Then I can also like, oh, I got the new gun. But then, because I can then approach them in a different way of saying like, hey, I noticed that you did this multiple times or like twice, and I have to say something about it. Because like, if you see someone do something like one time, it might be like I said, like an accident or something. But if it's like multiple times, I mean they intentionally did it. That's like people usually like look at it twice to make sure if they're actually seeing that like happen. Because they're like in disbelief. They're like, what? Did this really happen? That's probably like a similar approach, I would say.
So do you think that watching it happen is as bad as doing it yourself? Could it be worse? It's a tough question because it's, you know, you really have to throw it into a scenario.
Let me think about that one.
All right, let's break it down to different kinds of problems or different kinds of situations. So
sure.
So we've been talking only about social ones. We've only been talking about social problems. So what about, let's say ethics, right? Let's say, you know, you see someone, like you're working at in retail, and you see someone steal money, one of your colleagues steal money from the cash register, and you know, let's make this even more interesting. You know that they have a very sick parent, and like they're struggling to pay for medicine. What do you do?
Pull them aside and talk to them and ask them, is there any way I can help? That's like very tricky. I just don't know the outcome. Because you can never see like 2 outcomes. If you did something or not, you can't see in the same situation. It's like one time only. What'd you do?
I liked your answer. I think that offering assistance and showing them, not just telling them, but showing them that their route of action is not ideal.
Yeah, you gotta tell them, hey, something's
there
wrong.
are more options. Letting them know that there are more options. There's a better way of doing this. That's the ideal way. That's the very utilitarian way of doing it. Ooh.
Oh, I'm dead. I'm dead. Oh, I could have survived it. Oh, it's fun, right? Look, I'm watching.
Yeah. Oh no.
Oh my God, this freaking.
Wait, why did I not die? There what?
No, the cart saves you.
Yeah, the cart saves you.
Bro, this thing is so big, bro. It's not even a mosquito. I don't think it's a mosquito, bro. It's huge. What was the question I was trying to answer before?
I was probably as high as possible.
I think I remember. Oh. It's the question of Like, is it the same thing as? Is it worse if you don't say anything than doing it yourself?
Yeah, yeah. So we were breaking it down. We were breaking it down to different areas. So we said socially, no, right? Like if you see like discrimination happening, for example, and you don't speak up, yes, it's bad, but it's not as bad as doing the discrimination yourself, right? In a social setting. Then we said financially, right? If you're working at a company and you see that they're being, you know, one of your coworkers is stealing from the company.
Yeah. And you let it happen.
And you let it happen. You didn't say anything about it. I think in that case, yes, it's just as bad. And I say that because you are also contributing.
What makes that as bad?
Because it's your work, right? Like you're working at that company, like you're contributing to the growth of the company, so you're directly impacted. It's almost.
You think someone thinks like that though?
I think there are more stakes. There are more stakes involved. When
I think it's other stakes. It's like you know the scenario. It's because you know the scenario. Like you like you said, like the person has like a sick family member or something, right? You know the scenario. That's why you're like willing to not say anything.
That's true. It's very true. The scenario, you have to know the scenario. It really plays a role. So is there an example of where not saying anything is actually worse than doing it yourself?
Kill someone or something.
So you think watching someone kill someone is worse than actually killing someone?
Well, watching someone do it and not saying something is worse than you doing it yourself.
What if you're scared?
Or it's the same.
And they're like about to get the death penalty.
Yeah.
They're about to meet the death penalty, and you know that they're innocent, and you decide to not say anything.
Yeah.
That's almost worse than convicting them yourself, because you know they're innocent, but you chose not to say anything. Okay. What I was thinking was, when it comes to kids, like if you see like a group of young kids, like I don't know, like let's say you see a bunch of young kids like smoking weed, for example, and you know that they got it from their parents or like older cousins or something, and they don't know better, right? That's the key here. They're so young that they don't know better. They don't know what they're doing, but you know that it's bad. In that case, I think it's worse to watch it happen, know that it's a bad thing for them to do, know that they don't know better. It's worse for you to do that than it is for you to actually engage and smoke with them. Because you're taking all those things into consideration to say, this is wrong, these kids don't even know better. You see it? Can you just peek over real quick?
Oh yeah, sorry, this mosquito is bugging me. No pun intended. Where are you?
So far we said that in the realm of watching something happen or letting something happen versus doing it yourself, is there a difference? And we tried to break it down into different categories. So we said social, then we brought in ethics/finance, and of course there's more, right? We can dive into politics for this case. We can talk about, there's so many things, but
is this an ethics question, like overall?
I think it is. It definitely is an ethics question. That's the beauty of it, right? You can argue it. You can argue it so many ways, but you can argue it many ways, but you just have to support your argument.
Exactly. That's what I meant. You can support your argument, whichever view you have, depending on the ethical. What do they call those? The ethical, like
Dilemma?
No. Like utilitarian. What do they call those things?
Oh, decision-making theory?
I guess, yeah, the theory.
The decision-making theory.
Yeah. She said, so is one better than the other, though? Is it wrong to let it happen, like, morally?
You know, everyone has a different moral compass.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, it really depends on, like, your own morals. If you think that's, like, what you think is immoral versus...
Yeah, because morals is so much more than just right versus wrong. There's culture, there's religion, there's traditions. there's so many things that play a role, and you know, we can give examples like the Eskimo culture, for example. Like those, like some of the things that they engage in, Western culture finds it very, very wrong, right? Like sharing wives, and you know, like it's like a, what was it? If you're a guy, it's like a sign of respect if you offer your wife to another man. Like that's in the Western culture, that's very frowned upon. You know, like your wife, your spouse should be your spouse and your spouse only. And like that's what we have vows for. When you get married, you dedicate yourself to a person. And if we go to the Eskimo culture and say, hey, like you guys are animals. Like how dare you do that? And you know that in their culture, we're no one to say that they're wrong. It's theirs. You know, it's what they find to be making of their society. So it's really tough to answer questions like that, because all we can do is beat around the bush, really. All we can do is provide theories and say, you know what, this is what this person might argue, here's this argument, blah blah blah, but realistically there's no end to the discussion. There's no point that can really be proven. The only thing that you can really say is like there's support from every side. There will always be arguments that say, you know, watching it happen is worse than doing it yourself. And then we can say, well, really, like, if you really break it down, then you're not doing it yourself, so it's not as bad. But the discussion, nevertheless, will never end. Because, like I said, socially, it's not as bad. Watching something happen is not as bad as doing it yourself, because you could just be scared, you know? But if, like, let's say...
it's okay to be.
It's okay to be scared. It's really okay to be scared. But if you have that aggression towards a type of person for no reason, right? Innocent people, it's just like the way they naturally are. You just have this aggression towards them. There's something wrong with you, you know? So doing it yourself is horrible. Doing that kind, like engaging in those kinds of attacks on minorities in this case, for example, like that's horrible. To watch it happen and not say anything because you're scared, that's okay, right? Obviously, like it's not ideal. But like if you're really scared of stepping up, like you have some insecurities of your own, then it's obviously not as bad as being the abuser yourself.
Doing it, yeah.
Yeah. And we also said that, you know, financially, like if you see one of your coworkers like stealing money and you don't say anything, then no, it's not as bad. Even though it's not as bad, you could have. It's a lot worse than social things, because you could have offered your assistance. You could have said, "Hey, like you know you're doing the wrong thing. I can help."
Because you know the person too, and you know their situation.
Yeah, and there shouldn't be any fear there. You know, what are you scared of? What could you be scared of in that situation?
I mean, it's very common for people to be just scared of conflict and just scared of doing something that's like extra. Like to them it's very extra to just be, they don't think their opinions are good enough, or I guess adds value, like not good enough. Like they don't think it's necessary. That's what's stopping them. They just don't want confrontation and don't want conflict. That's what the main point here is, I think. Until something affects you, you won't do anything about it. It's like because you have no stake in it. You have no accountability. It doesn't matter if something. That's why it's very sad when people don't care about what's happening in like third world countries, for example, because it's not affecting them. They don't. They really don't care. And is that right that they don't care? I don't know. I can't answer that. It really depends on your own morals and what you believe in. Okay, she says, so what if we got back to the ethical question? What if the situation were more extreme, like the difference between killing someone and letting them die? I think this situation has a really thin line between the two ideas. What do you think?
If you let someone die?
Yeah, say it's like an extreme, like you have to speak up or the person dies, or... Yeah, what do you think about that?
Ooh.
Like, is it wrong if someone had a chance to save someone or they die? I mean, if you can live with that, like regret or guilt, then I don't know. It really depends on the person.
I need a scenario. I honestly, yeah.
I hate saying that, like, it depends, because it's more of like a cop-out answer. But that's like more so what like ethics really is. Like, it really depends on situations. All right, so I guess I could give an example. You're in the streets. I'll give it. And you overhear two guys say, "We're going to kill this person." Right?
Okay.
At this restaurant. These two guys are saying, "Hey, no, not at the restaurant, at this person's home. We're gonna break into this person's home and we're gonna kill them." You overhear this, and the question now is, what do you do?
Call the police.
Or actually, no, that's like a poor example. I mean, that's a good example of like stage 1. So you would call the police, right?
Yeah.
Say there's no time. You see the person. That was stage 1. Now it's stage 2. It gets more intense. Less time available. You hear these two guys talk about it, right? And they're saying it's the girl that's right, like, across the room. There's no time to call the police. Like, the police won't come in time. What do you do? Do you speak up, or do you walk away like, oh, it might be a joke? That's the extreme. Like, what if it's like between life or death? Like, would you let it happen? That's the question, the main question. Would you let it happen, or would you do something about it?
You kicked it out of bounds.
Yeah, here, bro.
Oh! Oh my god!
What would you do? Imagine you have every option. Like, you could do anything. Be creative with it, I guess. Oh! Oh god.
That's a golazo. I wouldn't confront them, that's for sure. What am I gonna say? Hey guys, don't kill her?
Okay.
They're gonna kill me. That's gonna get everyone. That's gonna get so many parties.
So, like, I guess the question is not like, what would you do in this situation? It's more of answering, would you let it happen, or would you do something about it? That's what the question is.
Okay, in that exact situation, if I overhear that a murder is about to take place, I see the murderers, and they're saying we're about to kill this person right now or very soon, then like I would probably, in that instant, call the police, like go somewhere private, call the police, let them know what I just heard, let them know my situation, or like where I am, what the guys or girls look like that said that, who they're after, like give all the details that I can, then ask them, what should I do? What can I do right now? They're probably gonna say like do nothing, like find a safe place.
And we're coming, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's that's what I would do.
No, I get that, but so the point here is you would do something about it, and you wouldn't let it happen.
Yes.
And is it wrong if you just let it happen?
It is wrong if you just let it happen, knowing you could have stopped it, but it's not as bad. Letting it happen is not as bad as you pulling a trigger by yourself.
I agree with that. For my own morals, like any situation where you have the ability to stop an act from hurting a single person or multiple people, you should definitely step in. And I do think it's wrong if someone doesn't step in knowing they have the ability to do it.
Right.
But given a situation where, say, you have no phone and you can't protect yourself, it might not be wrong to just, it sounds bad, but letting it happen because you don't have the ability, because you could die yourself too. And it sounds selfish, but that's just what I think.
I agree.
It's very tough. It's very tough in that situation because it's either you or them that's gonna die.
Yeah. And like we can't forget the fact that it is an ethical question, something that you can't prove to be black or white. There's so many gray spaces, and like that's a nice thing, you know. It's that's where you get perspectives, and that's where you get different theories, and you get to learn a lot because you're put in a situation where there is no right or wrong answer. Yeah,
definitely agree with that.
But this was a great conversation. I like the question.
This is a great question, Pavana.
Thanks for the question. That was solid.
Yeah.